Netflix and chill, just hanging out, we're just kicking it. These are all the varieties of dating behavior that women are settling for, and girls, we need to cut it out. And that's what we're going to talk about on this episode of One-Derful Life. I'm Ditman. I'm an award-winning business professor on the collegiate level and the creator of College on Fleek and One-Derful Life. One-Derful Life is my way of describing how it feels when you've made peace with being single. A lot of women out there I know are like, I'm happy to be single, I don't want a man. And that's cool, but I don't feel that way. I've always wanted to be married and have a family, but I'm well over 40 and it hasn't happened for me. And for a long time, that was really a source of sadness for me, because part of my definition of a fulfilled life includes being a wife and a mother. But I looked at my life and said, well, the singleness does not seem to be changing, and I just want to be happy. And even if a man never comes along, I just want to enjoy my life. And that's what One-Derful Life is about. It's about building a life that you really love, and hopefully your Mr. Right comes along and he'll be attracted to you because you're happy. And even if he never comes along, it's okay because you're happy. All right, ladies, we are doing some things that we need to quit doing. And a lot of times we will complain about men just aren't gentlemen anymore, men just aren't chivalrous, but I don't think that we can put the blame on the guys for that. I think we have to take the blame for this. Now, I've mentioned I'm a college professor. And this whole Netflix and chill, we're just kicking it, we're just hanging out. Like, that's something my college age girls deal with. Like, I don't know, like Netflix and chill, like that's the start of a relationship. The other thing is they're like, well, we're talking. I don't even know what that means. Apparently, we're talking means we're texting back and forth. We're not actually going out and doing anything. We're not spending time together, but we're texting. I don't understand what that means. I mean, based on that definition, I'm in some kind of a relationship with my eye doctor because I get texts from them all the time about when their office is open. Now, we're in a climate demographically in the United States where in any age group, but especially over 40, there are many more single professional women than there are single professional men. And that, even when you factor out everybody who doesn't want a relationship, everybody who's gay, all right, take every one of those folks out of the equation, you still have many more single professional women than you have single professional men. This leads to women many times getting into a mindset of, well, gosh, good men are hard to come by, they're scarce, and so I better like not be too picky. I better sort of like whatever he offers, I better take it. I can't let him get away. But it's human nature to take the path of least resistance. That's why texting is so popular, because it's just so much easier to text. It's impersonal, and I can send the same text to 5 people and see who comes back at me. So anytime that we as people have the option, what would be the path of least resistance? Most of the time we're going to take it. So when you allow a man the easiest path to spend time with you, he's going to take it. The problem is that for men, when they're with someone who is allowing that type of low value behavior, they're not going to see you as wife material. They'll see you as kicking it and hanging out material, which, hey, if you're not interested in long-term commitment and marriage, great. But you're probably not watching One-Derful Life if you don't care about this. Here's the thing. People tend to live up to the standard that we set for them. And I believe with men, if we want to see them being more chivalrous and more gentlemanly, then we need to expect that type of behavior from them. So here's the kind of low value behavior I'm talking about that women are allowing and going along with, and we have got to stop doing this. Last minute dates. Like he texts you and says, hey, what are you doing tonight? Or what are you doing tomorrow? That's a last minute date. And so if you say nothing, what did you have in mind? Or maybe you were like, well, I was going to hang out with my girlfriend, but what did you want to do? Then what you're really saying is, yeah, I'm just at your beck and call. Okay, well, first of all, nobody values anything that's in ready supply. Okay? We don't value acorns because they're everywhere. But if you found a 4-leaf clover, that's pretty cool. Home-based dates, like him cooking for you or you cooking for him. Whenever he says, you know, hey, how would you like to come over and I'll cook dinner for you? Or, you know, you even say, well, you could come over and I'll cook dinner for you, which is a mistake I've made. Like, he's taken me out a few times and then I'm like, well, hey, you want to come over and I'll cook dinner for you? One thing you need to know is, to a man, when you go to his place or he comes to your place and y'all are cooking a meal and eating together, he probably has an expectation that that is going to lead to sex. If you're ready to give it up, fine. Meeting him at a work event at his work. So for example, if he's like a restaurant manager and he says, hey, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? Why don't you come and be my date for this big New Year's Eve bash that we're hosting? Okay, well then basically you're just showing up and you're gonna hang out whenever he has 5 minutes, but he's at work. I mean, that's not really a date. He didn't have to plan that. He doesn't have to put any effort into it. Allowing a guy who's completely disappeared to just waltz right back on in without even mentioning, hey, sorry I didn't call you for 3 weeks. I was on a cruise, or my cell phone exploded, or I lost the complete use of my voice and hands. Settling for impersonal communication, texting, emailing, social media. All of that stuff is impersonal. And what I mean by that is, like I said, listen, he could be sending that email or that text message to 5 or 6 girls just to see who comes back with what. And him liking your Instagram post, girl, that doesn't mean anything. And a lot of us will put up with this type of behavior because we're afraid. We're afraid that, like, well, if I say no, or if I try to hold a higher standard, you know, I'm going to lose out. He won't like me. I'll be too picky. I'll end up alone. So let's just address that right now. Like, oh, yeah, right. I'm so afraid I'm going to lose out on this guy. He's so great. He won't even pick up the phone and call me. He won't even plan a few days in advance to say, hey, today's Tuesday. What are you doing on Saturday night? I'd love to take you out to dinner. Oh, like he'd actually plan a date. But no, this guy is so fantastic and I'm so afraid I'm going to lose him. He's so awesome that he doesn't want to plan anything in advance. He doesn't want to take me on a date in public. He doesn't want to call me on the phone and hear my voice. He can go weeks and weeks and weeks without even talking to me or hearing from me. Yeah, that's a great guy. I'd really hate to lose him. Get it together. Now, if you're over 40, like I am, we actually have a little bit of an advantage here because men who are over 40 really do know how to court a woman. Because, see, we all came up when there was no email, no texting, no cell phone. Like, remember back in the day when you actually had to pick up the phone and call, and then you didn't know if the person was there or not, or like in the early days when you didn't even have caller ID, you didn't know who was calling. And the best you could do was either take your chances and answer the phone or let the answering machine pick up. And then they would or wouldn't leave a message. But many times they would leave a message because that's the only way you would know that they called. So a lot of men over 40, they really do know how to properly court a woman. But again, a lot of them just don't do that because they kind of don't have to. And high value men don't really have to do a whole lot. They don't have to put forth effort. And why? Because women aren't requiring it. Listen, men like to compete, okay? And they like to win things. This is why they like to play sports. This is why they like to watch sports. This is why they'll compete with each other even on like, hey, let me see if I can make this into the trash can. If you went and bought a beautiful, shiny, sparkly trophy and handed it to a man because, you know, he played flag football all season and you just gave him a trophy, he would probably throw it in the trash. But if his flag football team, if they won and the prize was some stupid looking stuffed armadillo, he'd be so proud of that thing, he'd display it everywhere, it'd be all over his social media, he'd be so excited. Why? Because he won it. This is why men, like their first car that they buy by themselves, like usually if they're, you know, in their late teens or college or maybe right after college graduation, that first car that they had on their own, man, they probably were so proud of it. They'd take care of it, they'd wash it and wax it, even if it really wasn't like brand new or anything that now that they would be excited about. That was their baby. Why? Because they had to work for it and they had to sacrifice a lot to get it. And you know, here's the deal. When you accept low value behavior, that's what you're going to get more of. I was dating a guy for a while, a long while, and he was really, really rude. And he developed this habit where he would not introduce me to anybody in public. And by the way, that's a huge red flag, and I should have dumped him right away. But I didn't. So we'd be out somewhere, and he would carry on a conversation. It was like I just wasn't even there. And I called him out on it one night, and I was like, you know what, you're really rude. And by the way, you know, he's from the South, so Southern men especially know about manners, I'd like to suggest. They really do have the gentleman thing. I think they've got a little edge on the gentleman thing. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm going to tell you, I think he knew for extra sure that what he was doing was completely rude. And when I called him out on it, here's what he said. Well, you never said anything, so I didn't think it bothered you. Okay, and that's when I also should have broken up with him. Because basically, instead of saying, you're right, I'm being a douchebag, he said, well, but it's your fault because you didn't tell me anything different. Again, because I was allowing that rude behavior, I was getting more of it. Now, sometimes you'll have a man who will say like, well, I just don't like to plan stuff. Girls, that is not true. Men plan things all the time. They plan their entire schedule around football season, or what sport is on TV tonight or this weekend, or when are they playing golf, or that guy's fishing trip that they go on every year or every 6 months. So don't buy this like, well, I just don't like to plan things. Men plan things all the time. So this idea that like he's just incapable of planning ahead 3 or 4 days, a dinner date, and like calling you in advance, picking up the phone and calling you and saying like, hey, like if it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, hey, what are you doing Saturday night? I'd love to take you to dinner at such and such. We're saying like, oh, he's not capable of doing that. No, he's completely capable of doing that. The problem is you. You're not requiring that of him. So ladies, I mean, come on, we got to help a brother out. Quit being low value. Listen, men know that there's a bigger price to pay for a higher value item. Every man knows that a Kia price is down here, but if he wants a luxury car from Italy, bam, that's up here. It's going to cost more. He's got to work harder. It's going to have to sacrifice more. You can go play golf at the municipal golf course, but if you want to play at the country club, that's got a whole different set of rules and membership and higher prices. If you want to travel first class, that's going to cost you a lot more than coach. And men know that. And girl, you are not a used Kia. So if you want to be treated like a high value woman, then you need to act like one. That means when he texts you and says, hey, what are you doing tonight? First of all, I wouldn't even respond to that. But if I was going to respond, I'd say, have plans, smiley face. So you need to require that he treat you like a high value woman. You need to require that he court you. And I don't just mean for 3 dates or 2 weeks. So again, if we go back to this idea that you have all these single available professional women and not so many single available professional men, the question there would be, oh my gosh, how am I going to stand out? Like, how am I going to get any guy to notice me with all these other women around? Well, this is how you do it. You don't get into this basic behavior where you're just a groupie like, oh, okay, I'll drop everything since you asked me out. Sure, I'll do it. I'll text you back 2 seconds later. Like, okay, so now you're just like this commodity. Most women are acting like that right now. So you want to raise your standard. And you say, well, but then I might be alone. Well, if you're like me, you're alone now. And as someone who has dated men who I allowed them to treat me in a low value way, I can promise you I would much rather be alone. And that's part of why I'm single right now. Because I would just rather be alone than be with another guy who's just going to show up with his B game. I need you to bring your A game, mister. So here's my way of thinking. If a man doesn't think that I'm worth a phone call and that he put a little bit of effort into, I think I'd like to take her to dinner. Why don't I take her to such and such restaurant? Hey, I wonder if she'd like to go on Saturday night. Today is Monday or Tuesday. Okay, I'm gonna call her up. Hey, Mary, what are you doing Saturday night? I'd really love to take you to dinner at such and such. How about if I make a reservation there for 7 o'clock? Okay, so if he doesn't even think enough about me to do that, I don't want to go out with him. I mean, listen, girls, if he doesn't think you're worth a bouquet of flowers, if he doesn't think you're worth a phone call, if he doesn't think you're worth planning a date and asking you a few days in advance, that's kind of like the oil light in your car, okay? It starts blinking and it means there's a problem here and you need to pay attention to it because this problem is going to turn into complete engine failure. Now I'm going to tell you again, the point here is, we as women, we want to complain about, well, men today are just lazy, men today won't blah, 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 men today won't plan a date. Well, that is just not true. The problem is not that men are lazy. The problem is women have lowered the standards. So if you want that behavior to stop, you have to require different behavior. Sorry, we can't put this on the guys. It's on us. Now, this does take confidence because yes, you might spend more time alone. My dating pool shrank significantly when I started requiring higher standards from the men that I dated. I turned down a lot of dates because it was a lot of like, what are you doing tonight? What are you doing tomorrow? Like, no, I'm not going to be available at the drop of a hat. And listen, if all a guy wants to do is just text and he doesn't want to pick up the phone and have a connection with you, a personal connection with you, no, I'm not interested in that. So yeah, I have way fewer dates. And that takes confidence. Part of having a wonderful life means you are okay knowing that, okay, well, I'd rather be by myself than with a guy who is not going to put forth any effort. Like, he doesn't even value me enough to pick up the phone or plan and ask me for something a few days in advance. Now, it can be really hard to feel confident if you're getting over a broken heart. And if that's your situation, you might want to check out our ABCs of Healing. If you go to bit.ly/ABCs of Healing, you can get that. It's free. It's a video where I sit down with you one-on-one and walk you through some very simple steps of how to speed up healing from a broken heart. And Wonderful Life is a dialogue, not a monologue. I want to know what you think. What do you think about requiring higher standards from men? Put that in the comments. You might want to check out wonderfullife.com. We post a new blog there every Friday. You could also join our email list, and we have some really cute merchandise there you might want to check out. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time right here on Wonderful Life.